Okay, good students, we are on to part 3 at this point, and that's going to be activity 2 from the student worksheets. Here's what you need to get together for part 3. You're going to open up the file named Student Activity Worksheets, then we're going to use that again. You need to find handout S3, you need to find handout S4, and then there's this Google Sheet file also included. Just going to show you where that looks like underneath Schoology. That would be handout S3, handout S4, here's that Google Sheet, and then the student activity worksheets is what you also need. Give you a second to get caught up with that. I'll be right back here. I'll pause for a second, and then you can hit play in a second again. Okay, so hopefully you've got those things. Here's what we're doing today. So when they talk about how much coral is lost, so you hear about Great Barrier Reef is 93% destroyed, or the Cayman Reef is 53% destroyed, or whatever it is. How do you actually know? Like, there's not people that can go out to these areas. The Great Barrier Reef is humongous. It's the size of like Texas. There's absolutely no way that you could possibly cover all of that square mileage or square area at all. So the current technique that they use now is drones. They use underwater drones, and they tether them to boats, and then they get a GPS signal. And what they do is they just go out in a grid over the top of coral reef, and they go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth all day long. It is a time-consuming strategy, but it's our best bet. You might wonder if we would use overhead drones, like fly them up above, but you get so much glare off of waves and sunlight and things like that, and time of day would really matter as well. With underwater drone, you can swim it basically or dive it 10, 15 feet below the surface, and then you get pretty clear pictures. They combine all of those pictures into a mosaic, so they get all of them all put together, and then they get the overall shape of the reef. So they basically grid out a whole reef, okay? So they break it into grids, and then people and computers are basically trained to assess percent cover, and that's what you're going to be doing today a little bit, okay? So your job today is going to be to determine coral reef health from photos. So using handout S3 and student activity worksheets, and I'll show you where I got these pictures from. They're from the S3 and activity worksheets too. But basically they're trying to give you an idea of what means what, okay? So this is a gridded out little box, basically 1 meter square here. And what they're doing is they're saying you need to be able to identify what's healthy coral here and what's not. So the main key points here that you need to be able to identify is that healthy coral extends white tips in overhead photos. So it's coral that's growing, it's healthy, and it gets little white tips to it because it's kind of pushing upward towards you, slowly, but you're seeing some of those tips, okay? Algae will grow over live coral, but not the tips. So the tips are always kind of cleaned off basically by little organisms and by the coral themselves. The coral will eat the algae at the tips. Algae will not, will basically cover dead coral in mats. So if you find a picture that's got like algae just covering it, then you have to assume that that coral is dead in that place. So we're going to take a look at this picture up here. What we've got here is a picture of a bunch of white tips. This is, again, a top-down view of just kind of flying over the top of a coral reef. And you can see a bunch of white tips. It's kind of like looking down on a forest, right? Wherever you see places like this little spot here that I'm kind of highlighting or circling here, whenever you see spots like this, that's an area that's kind of matted over with algae. So there's going to be dead coral behind here. So we've got dead coral here, we've got dead coral over here, and it looks like some dead coral up here. So what we'd do is we would estimate in this box, you have to make an estimate, you have to make a best guess here. In this box, I don't know, maybe 90% of this coral is alive, and maybe 10% of the area inside this box is dead. Now, I might say 90%. The next person might say 85%. The next person might say 80%. What they do is they do this over and over and over again, and then they just take an average of that. So that's this picture that gives you kind of an idea of what you're looking for, healthy versus dead coral, okay? Here's another picture of that. You get kind of white tips along here. There's little white splotches along there. That's healthy coral. This is all healthy coral up in here. This is all healthy coral. But this area here is dead coral. So this area right here that I'm kind of circling around, that's going to be dead coral. So maybe we'd say 75%, 25% or something like that. 75% healthy coral, 25% dead. In this picture, I tried to pick out a picture that was, it seems kind of healthy. You can see the really healthy coral over here on the side up here, and you can see it up top here and along this edge. But this stuff you can see is like a hazy green mat of algae has grown over all of this stuff. So almost all of this coral is dead. There might be some little white tips here that might be making it still, but for the most part, most of this stuff is dead. So when you look at this box here, you might get to a point you might go, that may be only about 30 or 40% alive, and the rest of it is dead. Maybe even smaller percentage. This picture here is exemplifying what 100% healthy coral looks like. And again, even though there's green algae there, all throughout here, you're looking down on like healthy coral trees, basically. Every single one of them is pretty much healthy. So you're going to say that's 100%. So again, what you're looking for is clumps of dead coral or clumps of algae covering huge spots and no white tips protruding or coming up through that. Okay. So let's go to these handouts here a little bit, just to kind of show you. This is what we're going to be doing here, the activity 2. So I'm going to slide up here and just show you that I'm on that student activity sheet, and I'm sliding down. We should have done activity 1 previously. And then this is the instructions for activity 2. Now I'm going to give you this in different words because it's really hard to do. I think it'll be easier if we do it with a Google sheet. So I'll go through this here in a second in different ways, but you can always refer back to that. S3, handout S3, is again trying to show to you, here's 100% live coral. Here's some live coral with white tips. Notice the dead stuff overgrown by green algae and the dead stuff overgrown by red algae. Okay, so that's what that S3 is all about. That's all you need to see. I'm going to close that one out. And then handout S4 is where we get down to what we're actually going to do. We're going to compare the Gulf of Cherokee to the Gulf of Panama. So here's how we're going to do this. So I'm going to go back to my slideshow here. And I'm going to do that. And we're almost there. So your part is to go to the Google Sheet file, and I'll show you that here in a second. And I'm just going to walk through these instructions, just say them first, and then I'll do them. So you're going to go to this file. You're going to pick out an unclaimed grid number, and you're going to fill in your name on that file. And then you're going to open up that handout S4 that I just showed you, and you're going to look at these replicate grids from Panama and Cherokee. Using your self-assigned grid number, whichever one you picked, you're going to estimate the percent coral cover for each of the 6 replicates. So you're going to do this 3 times for Cherokee and 3 times for Panama. You're going to record those estimates into the Google Sheet. If done correctly, you'll have 6 total estimates. So here's what this is going to look like. So you're going to go to this Google Sheet, pick a grid number, look at the handout, report what is going on there. Okay, so here's that, here's that handout S4. Here is that Google Sheet. Now, I just chose a random number. You can choose whatever number you want. I chose number 26 because that was my football number. So I'm 26. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Cherokee replicate number 1. So I'm going to go back to S4. This is handout S4. And I'm going to go to Cherokee replicate number 1. Now these are gridded off. There are 36 boxes in each grid. 36 of them, right? Okay. They're 6 by 6. I'm going to zoom way in here so I can really see this pretty well. So I know there's 6 boxes across here and 6 here and 6 here. I'm going to do number 26, right? So here's 6, 12, 18, 24, 25, and 26. So I'm going to look at this box on replicate number 1. So I'm going to look at box number 26. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more on box 26. What I see here is I see a bunch of live coral, and I see a couple of pockets here of dead stuff. So I see a little bit here, and a bit here, and a bit here. So I'm going to make a call. I'm going to make an estimate on this. And I'm just going to say, well, that to me looks like about 30% of it is dead, and about 70% of it is alive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to this spreadsheet for Cherokee replicate number 1. I'm going to say, and we're just recording how much of it is live. So I'm going to say that 70% of that was live. So that's what I do. Then I repeat that for replicate number 2 and replicate number 3 for Cherokee. So going back, I'll zoom back out here. Here's replicate number 2. Cherokee is on this left-hand side. So here's replicate number 2. And then again, I count to box 26. It's going to be in the same spot, right? So 6, 12, 18, 24, 25, 26. That's the box I'm going to look at. So I'm just going to look at that box. I'm going to estimate my numbers there. I'll do this one more time. And if you're paying attention, you'll notice that I just had a little jump in the video there. It's because my dog went nuts. So picking up where I left off here, we're going to be on box 26 of this thing, right? So I don't even remember if I said that before, but here we go, 6, 12, 18, 24, 25, 26. So this box right here. So zooming in onto box 26. And that would be box 26 right here. So what I'm going to estimate then is like this stuff up here is all live coral, and it looks like little patches down here that are live, but a majority of this is covered in this green goopy algae cover here. So I'm going to say, just estimating, I'm going to say right around 50% of this box is live coral. So I'm going to go back to my spreadsheet and I'm going to report that replicate number 2 is about 50% alive. I'm going to continue that on for the rest of the replicates and just report my numbers. Hopefully when everybody else fills out their name and fills out their 6 data points, we can get average coral coverage, and then we can start applying that to some kind of crazy equations that really tell us a lot about coral reef growth and health and the effect of El Nino. So that'll be what your job is, 6 reported data points based on how much coverage you see in this handout S4, correct? Okay. So you're going to get that handout S4, you're going to go to that spreadsheet, you're going to report your 6 things. So I'm going to go back to here just to show the checklist one more time here. And your job was to open up the worksheets, open up handout S3, S4, open up the Google file or Google Sheet file, and then fill in your estimates, and you should have 6 replicates done when you're all done. That'll be your job. Thank you very much, and we'll pick this back up again on part 4.